Huge breaking news. We are so excited to report that SAKS Fifth Avenue, after literally decades of protest, has decided to go for free. Here are some of the headlines that are happening right now. SAKS Fifth Avenue to shut down fur salons as department stores abandon fur. This is absolutely extraordinary. Those here and many, many others have been working for decades to make this happen. Wow. I just literally have to say, Miss Montana 2020 is wearing a faux fur, a fur that didn't involve horrible cruelty. But let me, before we get to the comments, play just one of the many thousands of demonstrations that have occurred to try to make this great day occur.
Fur trade!
Death trade!
Fur trade!
SAKS Fifth Avenue has blood on its hands.
SAKS Fifth Avenue has blood on their hands!
All those innocent animals, all these babies skinned
SAKS
alive.
Fifth Avenue has blood on their hands!
Terrible.
Now, I'd like to say that it started with nice comments, nice letters. More than 2 decades ago, I cut up my credit card and wrote a nice letter. I was told, we believe in giving customers all the options. So I want to start with Adina Berncrant. What is your reaction, your emotional reaction to this day after decades of protest?
I mean, I literally screamed with joy when I saw the news coming in. I got very emotional because, you know, being a New Yorker my whole life, the fur issue, since I've been an activist for 20 years, was always a top priority. And as you said, this has been a decades-long campaign. So many other retailers have already done this, but now that SAKS has done this, especially after there's been for several months now a targeted campaign. You're showing some of the photos from the protests this winter, targeting SAKS, you know, urging them to do this, and that it happened now is just momentous. This is a victory for animals. This is a victory for animal rights. It puts us closer to passing a ban on the sale of fur in New York. We have Assemblymember Linda Rosenthal here, who's a sponsor of that bill. So we're super excited about that angle of it. We want to have a fur-free NYC, and this helps us along.
Assemblywoman Rosenthal, and I know you weren't at any of those protests, so don't confuse her with the protests. She's a politician who works very hard. How big is this in a scale of 1 to 10?
No, I'd say this is a 9. 10 would be everybody giving up fur, but this is an amazing advancement in the fight to protect animals from abuse, but to protect animals from being killed for their fur. And I have been at other demonstrations, not at the SAKS one, but I thank all the advocates, Adita and everyone else who has been dedicating time and many years to this fight. And we will win this fight. Maybe stores are not going along with it because it's the right thing to do, but because it affects their bottom line. But we'll take a win any way we get it.
Well, before we get to the next heroes, and everybody on this video is a hero, so many organizations, obviously, PETA, Mercy for Animals, the SAVE movement, CAF2, which CAFT we'll get to in a second, Last Chance for Animals. Let's take a look at a couple of the demonstrations. Let's go to one that I attended here in Los Angeles.
Actress Nina Savari in the dark glasses right there leading this march. A message to Hollywood that fur is not glamorous, that it's actually a contrarian indicator, indicating you're socially insecure. You don't need to prove that you have wealth by wearing a dead animal on your shoulders. It actually is a sign that you're socially insecure. That is the message. There is absolutely no reason to wear fur. There is no excuse. There is no nice way to kill an animal for fur. The general methods are anal electrocution, neck snapping, skinning alive, and gassing.
So let me ask you, Marissa, Miss Montana 2020, you are wearing a faux fur, what I would call a new fur. If people want to wear fur, they don't have to kill animals. You are in the glamour industry. Fur is dead, is it not?
It's repulsive. If anybody, I've had people ask me before if this is real, and I am offended by that question. Like, yes, I know that it is luxurious and beautiful looking, but anybody who wears fur is immediately cast out. Even in the fashion industry, like, it is not acceptable to wear fur anymore.
So I want to ask now, tell us, Amanda, what CAFT USA stands for. You have been very, very instrumental, and we're going to show a protest in a second of some of the other New York City area protests that are happening as we add two more amazing activists in, Rachel Levy and Cesar Acevedo. Take it away, Amanda.
Yeah, so CAFT is the Coalition to Abolish the Fur Trade, and we have been working on campaigns. We take a very strategic approach, thinking about how to work towards strategic, winnable campaigns, starting with smaller design companies and then turning our attention towards SAKS Fifth Avenue. And we've been very excited to be able to be part of this, as you said, decades-long campaign against SAKS, and then to be able to use our organizing power, doing what we can to support and bring together activists from across the country, helping to coordinate things like weeks and weekends of action where in multiple cities, within one weekend, activists are being inside SAKS stores all over the country, making it impossible for them to ignore what people are saying about get rid of fur now.
Incredible work. Slightly scratchy audio. We're going to go to one of the protests and then get back. Rachel Levy, you were involved with many of those protests. Tell us about that.
Hi, how are you, Jane? So nice to see you and everybody else. Hi, guys. Great job. Congratulations to everyone. I have to start off by saying that it's unbelievable. It feels like a dream right now. Yeah, I've organized protests against SAKS now for a couple of years. But now with the resurgence of the campaign with Coalition to Abolish the Fur Trade, we've all come together and from different cities, we've joined forces. You know what they say, strength in numbers, and it's been unbelievable. It's been really, it took off, and they've definitely heard us, put it that way. We've disrupted inside SAKS 6 times. We've managed to get inside 6 times. Don't think it's ever been done, but the message was as clear as possible. You got to stop selling fur. Our demands were very, very simple and clear. In this day and age, nobody needs fur. We all know that. It's cruel. The methods, the way they execute these animals are out of this world. It's incomprehensible. Mark Metric, when we disrupted at his home, I think we elevated and escalated the seriousness of this campaign. When he saw how serious we were, we disrupted at his home here in New York. I think he started taking us more seriously as well. Again, every city were instrumental in this win. So,
yes.
But yeah, we've been going strong for 6 months here in New York at the flagship store at headquarters.
And this is global. We've got Jenny McCool from Toronto. Tell us about what's happening in your neck of the woods.
Yeah, I want to give a shout out to all the Canadian activists who took part. We disrupted SAKS quite a few times. We went inside. We had a major happening where all the fur fell to the ground, or the racks fell down. We got major media for that, and we were so happy to join forces with all the groups and all the individuals, Rob Banks, Rachel, Maria in Chicago, in Boston. We were just so happy to join forces and to bring another fur seller down. And you know what? Industry is on notice. Those who profit off the use and abuse of animals, whether it be fur bearing, whether it be, animals for food, animals in experiments, they're on notice. Society's feeling about animals is shifting. And that is reflected in this decision. And another major victory in Canada today, Malcolm Klimowitz was on trial for going inside a mink farm and filming, and he's been found not guilty today. So double good news on the same day.
Oh my God, that's huge, because he faced a lot of time in prison. Now, I want to say that when people see these protests and say, oh, first of all, where's the selective indignation? Where's the outrage over the violence inflicted on these animals, anally electrocuted? Once you see that video, your world changes. Trapped with their leg in a trap, and then they're gnawing their leg off because they're stuck in a trap to die of thirst and just lie there a slow, hideous death. So when you're getting upset, try not to engage in selective indignation just at the people who are peacefully, maybe disruptive, maybe shouting, but never with any violence or any physicality, just disrupting verbally what is a terrible trade. And what we see is that, unfortunately, with most of these retailers, like I said, 20 some years ago, I cut up my card and I wrote a nice letter to SAKS. And what I got back was, we feel the consumer should have all the options for them to decide to themselves. Cesar Acevedo, you have done a lot of work with Animal Alliance Network, along with Ellen. Tell us a little bit about your emotional reaction.
I gotta say, let's take this moment to celebrate and keep pushing forward. It's really a great day when SAKS announces this, and it's amazing. This is a good day.
Silence for all the animals who've been killed for fur. We've got honks of support in a lot of media here. Please know that West Hollywood and Los Angeles and other cities are going fur-free, have gone fur-free. It's being phased in Los Angeles. They just voted to ban the sale of fur. It's going to be phased in over several years. This movement is exploding. Michael Kors was one of the biggest fur purveyors, had resisted change for years, and just recently went fur-free, which is a
So here's the thing. People are asked to like fur, but they don't, Assemblywoman Rosenthal, unless the protests stop. Time after time after time, years of writing letters, of being oh so very polite, just haven't worked. What are your thoughts on that, Assemblywoman?
Well, I think we're, all the activists and all of us are taking the right tack. If they don't get your cut up card and your polite letter, well, then we escalate and we escalate, and we see now what works. But what government should do is actually lead. And that's why I'm the sponsor of the bill to ban the sale of fur in New York State. I believe government has a moral responsibility to see to the social issues that plague society. And certainly killing innocent, beautiful animals so humans can wear an extra skin over themselves is something government should regulate. And so that's why everyone involved here is also involved in their various locations to try to legislate this industry out of existence. And doing that, doing the protests, raising our voices is resonating. You see how many more people are shifting away from a meat-based diet to an entirely plant-based diet. You see people spending billions of dollars in the United States on their pets who are their family. Consciousness has been raised and it is shifting. People are shifting away from cruelty in food, in clothing, in the way they interact with animals. And, we just got to keep doing what we're doing, but we also have to pass laws enshrining into our moral legal code that using animals for our benefit is illegal and unnecessary.
I want to ask everybody about the impact of the COVID pandemic and the fact that 17 million mink were slaughtered in Denmark. These are photographs that an incredible activist named Casper Hilt got for us. He got extraordinary, horrific, gut-wrenching video of the dumpsters in which 17 million mink were dumped. And of course, the reason why they were killed was because the COVID had hit the mink, and then the fear was that it would then trigger another surge of pandemic. But isn't the real answer, instead of killing the mink and talking about more biosecurity at mink farms, to end the mink farms themselves, Jenny McQueen?
Absolutely. When you look at these mink farms, there's been investigations in Canada as well, in Nova Scotia by Joanne MacArthur. She produced a documentary showing that the countryside around these places is absolutely polluted. And as coronavirus enters these places, it's yet another animal reservoir for it to mutate. So we're asking around Canada, all the provinces, to end fur farming, to ban the sale of fur. We have Fur Free Toronto, BC, Ban Fur in BC has just started up. And when the public start learning about how these animals are killed by electrocution, by gassing, they're horrified.
We have other people, because so many thousands of people have taken part in this. And of course, People for the Ethical Treatment of Animals, Last Chance for Animals, and other organizations have led the way for years, but we don't want to leave anybody out. So we've got a backstage filled with people who are like, let me in. I was involved. We want to give everybody a chance. That means we have to take one person down. But what I want to do is get Cesar Acevedo's assessment of what's happening in Los Angeles. Then we'll take you down for a little bit and we'll bring you back. Cesar.
So ever since CAF, started rolling a couple months ago, they've really, elevated everything and the excitement, and everybody was out there in full action. I went to the last two protests, and I got to say, it's the loudest protest that I've ever attended. The videos on the Instagram, CAF, and Kevin and Tyler are amazing, and the whole CAF team, and just the pressure tactics are amazing. They do so much research, and shout out and love to everybody who's ever spoken up to get rid of fur. But these tactics, they got Alice and Olivia to drop fur. So they're getting these designers, to drop fur. And now SAKS, is another one. And it's just amazing. And it's great energy and the intensity and pushing forward on a nationwide pressure campaign. And there's a lot behind the scenes that goes on. I've spoken with them, and hopefully it'll be on the show later within the week or so. But they have a lot of amazing tactics, and they're working well.
And we want to talk a little bit about, and I'm going to take you down and then bring you back, Cesar. Thank you for all you do. You are one of the most amazing activists. Do Fish Save, Animal Save, going live for Jane Unchained. Truly extraordinary. I want to bring Danny Rukin in. Danny, you're working in Oregon to get parts of Oregon or all of Oregon for free. Tell us what you're doing.
Yeah, first of all, I want to, likewise, like Cesar, I want to thank everybody here. Thank you, Linda. Thank you, Jenny. There's so many people who've been on the front lines. It's so exciting. We don't have a SAKS Fifth Avenue here, so we're just thrilled to hear all that you've done. We have some updates, and I agree with what everybody's saying and with what Linda said. We have to hit it from every area. We've been getting some retailers here in Portland to stop selling fur. Most recently, PETA got Pendleton to stop selling fur, and they are headquartered in Portland. And we did work for years on doing outreach with Pendleton, trying to build a relationship with them, as well as doing direct action outside every Fur Free Friday and whenever we were doing fur protests. We also have a lot of legislation going on. Oregon, this 2021, we just had so I'm a member of Compassionate PDX, Fur Free PDX, and we're a bunch of people here in Oregon who want to see fur banned in all of Oregon. We started with Portland. We made incremental moves, and we built a lot of relationships, which it's a lot about relationship building, and it's a lot about a lot of losses, little wins and little losses and bigger wins and bigger losses, and you just keep going. And like what you guys see here with SAKS Fifth Avenue, it shows how all the work that people do works. But I want to say that here in Oregon, they're working on coyote killing contest ban, and there were 4 bills this year, and we were one of them. Ban Oregon fur in Oregon. We didn't get a hearing, but the coyote ban got a hearing, the mink farm ban got a hearing, and there's a dairy farm that got a hearing, mega dairy farm that we don't want here. But what I want to say about the mink farm is the sad news is that today it was killed. It was a bill to ban all mink farms in Oregon. There's about 11 of them left. We know the reasons why. You've probably already talked about them. And we did have transmission between mink and humans here in Oregon.
Wow. Well,
it was killed today.
This is a global
SB 832.
movement. Let's celebrate our victories today, though.
Oh, we're
we
happy.
got SAKS Fifth Avenue to stop selling fur. And I have to say that SAKS Fifth Avenue, in my humble opinion, by the way, you're invited on anytime. We'd love to dialogue with you, is kind of like the McDonald's. I'm sure they wouldn't like that comparison, but the McDonald's fashion in the sense that McDonald's held out against doing a vegan burger or a plant-based option for years when it seemed like almost all the other fast food chains had done something. And finally, they came out with the plant lettuce and tomato. So Adita Bergkrant, you're seeing this whole movement. How big a deal is it for SAKS? Because we know that so many other places did give up fur. In fact, we went through during this protest, so I'll show you another clip in a second, Beverly Hills, handing out plaques of thank you to the stores that did give up fur and protesting outside the stores that hadn't. And every year it became more plaque giving and happy photos and fewer protests. But the SAKS Fifth Avenue was the last stop on the protest line where everybody did a die-in because they were the ultimate holdouts. So where are we?
I think what makes the news even more momentous about SAKS is that SAKS is known to be a luxury retailer, right? So that makes this news even more important in a way because fur is known as a luxury item. So the fact that now they have a fur salon at SAKS, and that is closing by the end of this year, actually. And by the end of 2022, they will stop selling all fur in all of their stores. So that means all the other designers that would have sold fur products in the luxury retailer SAKS are not allowed to do that anymore. So that means Canada Goose cannot, no other retailers that even make fur that would sell in SAKS couldn't. So this is going to have a huge domino effect within the industry. We already know so many retailers and designers have already gone fur free, but SAKS was almost on another level because of their status as a luxury department store, more so than Macy's or Bloomingdale's even. So that's why I think, and I think the next target will be Neiman Marcus. That's already underway in New York City. So
did you say needless markup? I'm sorry.
Needless markup.
Oh, go ahead.
AKA needless markup, right? So I think it's amazing. And I don't think this was mentioned, but sort of the PR response, the statement that SAKS gave was that this was in response to societal shifts and consumer preference changes. So they are acknowledging, which is huge in a way, they are acknowledging that society has shifted. As you said, this is no longer acceptable for most people. Most people do not want to buy fur or don't find it socially acceptable. So they acknowledge that in their statement as a reason for why.
Linda Rosenthal, Assembly member, we are so honored to have you. I know you're a busy lady. I want to ask you, what's next? Tell us again, spell out in people terms, what is this legislation? How can people get involved? And I do have to ask you about Canada Goose, because Canada Goose, which kills coyotes, has now said they've made some kind of compromise, but it's not something that has appeased the activists who continue to protest outside, because it's become like the status symbol, unfortunately, for sort of the millennial generation. Your thoughts on that, and also your legislation, what can people do?
Okay, so in terms of Canada Goose, I've looked into the prices. The prices are astronomical. I don't see how millennials or others afford it. Actually, it's like $1,000 for a coat that we know contains the blood and the feathers and the down of poor innocent animals. So I think people are going to start shedding that. We've passed the winter now. So we have much time to accelerate the anti-Canada Goose campaign. In terms of my legislation, it would ban the sale of fur in all New York State venues. The trouble has been the small industry in New York City, but some upstate, who market to mostly people who are Jewish and very observant, who use fur for their coats, but also for their religious garb.
But isn't there an exception that any legislation, if there's a religious issue, that can be set aside, written into the bill?
Yes.
So
that is
do that.
Yes, that is part of the bill. Actually, another set of objections is coming from the old time habit, tradition, if you will, of women wearing fur to church. Now, I think that was important as a signifier in the past that someone had accrued some material wealth. However, that is also a bygone era. I don't think current attendees, like the new generation, is saying, I need a fur to show that I've arrived.
Well, I hate to say it, but what would Jesus say? You know, I mean, the one thing that is most absolutely documented about the life of Jesus Christ, historically documented, is that he went into the temple in Jerusalem and he freed the animals who were set to be sacrificed. So in a way, you might call him the original animal rights activist. I'm no religious scholar. I want to say that. And I know religion is a touchy subject, but compassion, isn't that at the heart of all religious beliefs? I feel like when we are also threatened with an existential crisis of pandemics, as well as climate change, which habitat destruction is very intertwined with. And we know that the pandemic issue came up with the mink in Denmark and in other places because they killed 17 million mink because they were afraid that the mink would spread the pandemic, that that this is the time to evolve beyond that. I want to bring in Miss Montana 2020 again. And by the way, Assemblymember Rosenthal, thank you for all your amazing work.
Thank you, Jane. It's been, we've worked together on numerous pieces of legislation, also with Adita, and we're working with Rachel. We're trying to ban live markets in New York State. That is a momentous undertaking because the opposition is fierce. But a good lesson to learn from the SAKS deciding not to sell fur anymore is that we can win. Ultimately, we will win. It may take time. It may take a lot of effort, but we will win in the end because we're on the right side of this issue.
I am so honored to have you. Thank you, Assemblymember Linda Rosenthal. Support her bills. You can find her online.
Thank you.
We have other people who want to speak, but Marissa, you've been very patient. Boy, it's a high-class problem when you've got so many people who want to celebrate this legislation. We can't even get them all into the studio at the same time. Marissa, you know, you are Miss Montana 2020. You also were castigated for that. You also had a campaign to rob you of your crown because you're an animal activist. How significant do you think this is?
I think it's going to when we see that stores take such a stance as to remove an entire section of a product, all it's going to do is it's going to make people see that it was abhorrent in the first place. And then, so we've got fur, we're tackling fur, and then we're going to see leather next. And it's just going to trickle down. And we've been talking about mink a lot today, and mink lashes are huge in the fashion industry, the pageant industry, everybody wears lashes today. I have on a pair of House of Lashes faux lashes, and they're kind of still prevalent, but it's coming in where now people are really advocating against mink lashes. So you see it everywhere, and it's people like everyone we've been talking to today that's advocating against it, going into the stores and storming against it and talking about the destruction that it's doing and the lives that it's taking. So it's all about word of mouth and kind of shaming people for making those choices. If I see somebody wearing mink lashes, I will shame them. So there's so many other choices. They're just as beautiful. And the shift is so clear and so obvious today.
Savari in the dark glasses right there leading this march. A message to Hollywood: the fur is not glamorous, that it's actually a contrarian indicator, indicating you're socially insecure. You don't need to prove that you have wealth by wearing a dead animal on your shoulders. It actually is a sign that you're socially insecure.
All right. Now, Rachel, what are you planning on doing? What's your next protest target?
Well, considering that Kering is the sister company that owns, which just recently went for free, Balenciaga, Alexander McQueen, Gucci, a numerous amount of designers. There's a couple of designers that have still not gone for free. One being Yves Saint Laurent, which we would like to target as well. And of course, not to forget Dolce & Gabbana. It's like chipping at a block. We're going to keep chipping away until there are no more designers interested in using fur in their collections. And at some point, there will be no more demand, supply and demand. And again, the more we talk about it, the more people see how all these designers are dropping fur. And I'm going back since Michael Kors, Michael Kors went for free. People they're aware of that it's a dead industry and it needs to be abolished. And again, it is very rude and obscene to be wearing fur in this day and age when we know how much these animals suffer. And the more people understand and see how much these animals suffer, again, I think it's important when we do protests as well to bring the TVs, to bring the videos, to bring what's going on to these animals right in everybody's face. When we were at SAKS Fifth Avenue, the managers and the security guards were horrified by what they were seeing on the screen. I think they were a little bit nicer with us, or a little bit more, a little bit more docile with us. They weren't as aggressive with us because they saw face to face the horror, again, footage from fur farms and how the methods that they were killing these animals. So I think the more people are aware of what's going on and bringing everything to the forefront, they're not going to want to wear fur anymore. So a lot of targets are we're looking at a lot of targets. We're looking at Yves Saint Laurent, of course, Dolce & Gabbana, which one we haven't stopped.
Yeah, and by the way, I invite any of these manufacturers on at any time. I can't keep up with who's free and who's not for free. I went on and I saw Macy's is gone, and some of the others that I've written in, obviously Michael Kors. There are many that have gone for free. You're saying essentially those who remain, you will target. Now,
absolutely.
You are in Toronto where it gets darn cold. I'm in LA, so clearly we don't have to worry even about wearing coats most of the time. But nobody is wearing fur to stay warm, because if you're climbing the top of Mount Everest, you're not wearing a fur coat. You're wearing some kind of...
Exactly. And I can just touch on Canada Goose as well.
Yes.
Canada Goose has got this ridiculous announcement where they say they'll just use recycled fur from 2022, which is shameful. There's no excuse for wearing real fur. It just promotes the normalization of actual fur. And the fact that people, now the young people, would never wear a full fur coat. They know that it's shameful. I've got grannies donating fur coats to me. They're ashamed to have them in the closets. If the kids could just feel the shame of wearing a full fur coat when they've got a piece of trim around their head, then that would be the thing.
Absolutely. Now we're going to bring Amanda back. Amanda, let's try your audio one more time. You've been listening to all this. What's next for the movement? You're the coalition against the fur trade.
Yeah, so we are considering what to do next. Obviously, we have had a lot of success so far in focusing on designers, with also focusing on SAKS in the background. And now we are just continuing to build that momentum, not stopping until we see an end to the fur industry in this country. And so, yeah, as I said, momentum keeps building. Obviously, today was a huge victory. And we are just going to keep bringing that forward, and we are able to just apply more and more pressure to these companies that are continuing to sell fur, the pressure that other companies have already given it up. And of course, we are seeing this continued building of activists who are willing to go into stores, disrupt business as usual, make it clear to these companies that if they continue to sell fur, it is not going to be good for business. And so whoever is targeted next is going to hopefully see the writing on the wall that they should quickly give up fur, and hopefully places will start doing that before activists are even at the door, because we will be coming.
And I really do think the pandemic, with the killing of the 17 million mink, for the very least, it certainly took the glamour away from the whole concept of fur and made it seem really what it is. It exposed the blood and the guts, and this isn't just a furry little thing. These were animals, because people were talking a lot about the 17 million animals who were killed. And it was headlines: 17 million farm mink due to be killed for coronavirus. I honestly feel that Marissa, that had an impact, because it kind of made the entire issue distasteful. In other words, what does fur sell? Fur is selling glamour, sex appeal, trying to, right? The idea of sort of a sexy woman draped in fur, what becomes the legend most, all that garbage. But when you start seeing this and this, it really shatters the myth, Marissa.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think it highlights the importance of the undercover investigators and the people who are willing to risk their life and risk being faced with charges in order to show people what is actually happening. And that's the importance of social media and sharing these images, and why I felt like I had a duty as Miss Montana USA to share the graphic images that nobody wanted to see, that everybody told me to stop talking about. But it's these images and the videos that make people make different choices.
And I have to say, however you feel about fake fur or new fur, I think that's a better way to put it. If people want their fur, just sure. Look, Miss Montana 2020 is wearing a beautiful faux fur, and she looks very glamorous. You can look glamorous. You don't need to have a dead animal. If you're hell bent on having something furry, okay, you can have, my dogs like to sit in this, and this is furry, but it's made out of nothing that has to do with dead animals. We're in a world where we don't need to eat animals to have meat. We don't need to wear dead animals to have fur. And I think this is part of the entire modernization of society. Fur is starting to look positively medieval. And so, Rachel, how big a win is this? Because let me just say this.
Huge.
I've been in the animal rights movement for, 3 decades. And I remember when I did cut up my SAKS card and sent them that nice letter well over 2 decades ago, I said, well, this is a waste of time. They're never going to change. They're not going to change. But as I picked up this today, Nelson Mandela, it always seems impossible until it's done. That's on my refrigerator. That's on my refrigerator. Because at the time I cut up that card, I said, who's going to read this? They're not going to care. Today, they're gone. And the same thing with Ringling Brothers, Barnum and Bailey Circus. When you were there, we protested.
Yeah, we were there.
In Brooklyn, you were there outside 9 degrees. And we're wondering, is this making a difference? Is anybody looking at us? Ringlings, it's gone. So do the next indicated thing. Stay out of the results. We have the momentum. Rachel Levy.
When we were at Ringling real fast, we were out there in blizzards day after day at Nassau Coliseum protesting. We never thought we'd see the day. We were going for 9 years straight. And of course, with all the intros and again, with the help of legislators, we got it done. Again, to go back to SAKS, I'm very, very positive that other retailers, there are a few that we're targeting that in very soon. And they're just gonna have to follow suit like everybody else. They're not gonna be standing out like a sore thumb and everybody watching them like, oh, you're the only ones that are going for free. You're gonna scream that you love animal abuse. So again, I think today was a huge win. I can't even measure it at this point because when I got a certain phone call, which I'm not entitled to, I'm not allowed to say yet, but somebody called me from SAKS headquarters.
Okay.
Yeah, I can't get into it for legal. When they told me this,
hold on. I got to say, I cannot independently confirm that as a journalist. So I have no idea, and I need to say that legally. Okay. So whatever, continue on. But the
I got a phone call. I got a very kind phone call.
I don't know if we.
Yeah, I got a very good phone call. So yeah. Okay. So.
Listen,
when they said
I would like to say this personally to SAKS. I'd like to say this personally to SAKS. Thank you. SAKS Fifth Avenue.
Absolutely.
You're an institution, and institutions evolve just like humans evolve. And I applaud you for evolving. Absolutely. And I think you've done a great thing. And so we don't want to knock you. Okay, maybe it could have been a little sooner. It should have been sooner. Maybe when I had cut up my card 20 some years ago, you should have immediately changed, but shoulda, coulda, woulda. Let's not regret the past. Let's focus on what you can do in the future. You can become the leader in sustainable fashion. We have pineapple leather. We have cactus leather. We have hemp leather. We have mushroom leather. There are so many incredible things that are happening. So my feeling is I don't want to attack these companies. These companies are institutions. You know, I've worked for a lot of big companies. You go back after 10, 15 years, not one person, maybe one person that was there when you worked there. They're boxes. Yeah. They're boxes that are filled with people that reflect society outside. Maybe you could address that, Amanda. I see you nodding your head.
Yeah, I think we do have to remember that there are people behind these decisions. A lot of times, you know, something like a corporation feels very monolithic, but then we have to remember that there are decision makers. And when CAFT is looking at our tactics, a lot of what we are doing is trying to get to those people who have that decision-making power. If we're at a store and disrupting it so that management makes a phone call to corporate headquarters so that then they are paying attention. With going to the home of the CEO, as the amazing activist did in New York, he can't ignore when activists are in his lobby. So we do have to keep in mind who the people are, how to make the message clear to them, and hope that we continue to see a change in attitude from those people.
Now, Cesar and Jenny, you are both involved in the SAVE movement, and that's the Animal Save movement, the Health Save movement, the Youth Save movement, the Climate Save movement, but it is all love-based. Yes, there you go. The Fish Save movement, it's all love-based. So we want to remember, as we even have this discussion, that while we are protesting, while there are protests, nonviolent, although confrontational, verbally confrontational, but nonviolent physically, that it's coming from a place of love. Cesar, take it away.
You know, fur is a thing of the past. It's gone. It's the past. And compassion is the greatest fashion. You know, it rhymes. But when we're out there, you know, we're vocal. We have the megaphones, and you know, it's nothing personal directed towards people. We're just trying to get the big message across to the masses. And you know, like when you cut up your card, it takes each individual to take their own action, and together we're, you know, making waves and changing. It's just amazing. You know, they even had to hire more security there. And they monitored the CAF page from, you know, when I was speaking to Kevin and Tyler, you know, and they would monitor it because they had to hire more security just for when they would come through. So definitely, you know, they're monitoring it, and it's so amazing to see things coming together, you know, over the years. And vegans are from the future, and we're heading towards the future. And it's all love, passion, you know, that's why we're out there and leave our voice out there. And we have the Unchained speaker. Thank you again. Everybody loves it. It really makes vibrations. But literally, it was the loudest activism I've ever gone to. When we're out there, it's the loudest. And you can still have fashion. I mean, look at this. I'm staying warm. We're in California, but save the ducks. So, yes.
Save the ducks. Yeah. I'm going to play a little bit more of one of the in-store protests, and then we're going to come back to Jenny McQueen about what people should do if they have furs, because PETA has suggested you cut up your fur, you give it to a homeless person who may be cold, who needs it, but you cut it up so it can't be resold. So watch this. Jenny McQueen, that is loud. Some people might say that's obnoxious, but it's not violent. What is violent is anally electrocuting an innocent animal, leaving an animal inside a cage for his or her entire life, etc.
Exactly. And I want to also point out that I support direct action everywhere. And we say that we are fiercely nonviolent. PETA has been great with supporting us against Canada Goose. Last Chance for Animals has worked in Canada too, and they had a victory in the courts. There's a fur farm that they investigated, and they were just charged with cruelty in Canada too. Now, you'd asked about what people can do with their fur. There's quite a few programs now. Coats for Cubs accept fur donations at Buffalo stores across the nation of the United States. I'm not sure if that's, with coronavirus still a thing. PETA accepts used fur too. And in Canada, we have Zip Off the Cruelty, where people can send us their furs, their fur trim. And we accept that and we donate that to animal rehabbers, to wildlife sanctuaries. So there's all sorts of options. People don't need to hold on to the fur. They can zip it off. They can keep the coat, zip off the cruelty, and do something good.
Right. Sometimes one woman said to me once, well, this is my grandmother's coat. I said, well, this was kind of rude. I said, well, if your grandmother wore a chastity belt, would you wear that too? Just because somebody did it in your past doesn't mean it's a good idea today. Adita, where do you see this movement going as we wrap up here?
I see it just going forward, getting more victories. And I just wanted to quickly give, I don't think Linda Rosenthal got a chance, the bill number for the New York State bill that would ban the sale of fur across New York. Any New York listeners, wherever you live in the whole state, you can contact your New York State reps. It's bill number 703, Assembly Bill 703. Very important, especially in light of SAKS. You can even use that as an intro that, hey, just heard SAKS has joined the growing list of retailers that have gone fur-free. I really hope as your constituent, you'll support this legislation to join California in banning the sale of fur. But I see kind of, yes, some of the, like you said, some of those protests can be sort of loud and obnoxious and disruptive. But if we look at any change in society, they all had nonviolent resistance, whether it was civil rights, the LGBTQ community, the suffragettes. It's nonviolent resistance in the style.
The civil rights movement.
Martin Luther King or Gandhi, and sometimes that means civil disobedience, that sometimes you are being disruptive or perhaps even breaking laws for a greater cause. But I want to say that we didn't, no one was arrested in New York City for our protests. They were loud, but no one got in trouble, and it got a lot of attention. And, when you're up against such great injustice causing such mass violence, I feel we have a duty to speak up. We have a duty, whether that's through civil disobedience, through protest, through disruptions, through legislation. We have to do everything we can because, you know, we need to create a more nonviolent, peaceful world. There's a lot of violence in this world, and we have to do our part. I think that's part of being a citizen of the world.
Now, Jenny McQueen, you did have the other piece of breaking news. This gentleman who I interviewed, Malcolm, I don't want to mispronounce his last name, in Canada, went into a fur farm to videotape and take photos to show what the horrible conditions are. He was arrested, charged. He didn't take anything. He didn't steal anything. He was arrested and put on trial, and the verdict just came down. Give us again, because this is almost like twin breaking news.
Exactly.
A fur trial ends in acquittal for the guy who's documenting the horrors, and Saks Fifth Avenue gives up fur. Go ahead.
It was literally a few minutes after I heard the news about SAKS, and then Malcolm posted, Malcolm Klimowitz, the hashtag is Mink Trial. He went inside, he filmed the disgusting conditions that we all know about, animals in distress, you know, piles of maggots, the usual. And he was being charged and potentially faced years in jail. The trial ended a few weeks ago, and the judge was making her decision, and she published her decision today. I've yet to read the background, but it's a huge victory for animal rights activists who go inside. I mean, I'm facing trial in October for going inside pig breeding factory. And it's a huge success for Malcolm personally, who didn't want to go to jail, and for the animals and for the other activists. You know, they're trying to introduce ag bills in Canada. And this is just, you know, like, you know, no way. We're winning. We're going to win.
Wow, that's huge. So I've got to say to everybody, we've got everybody here. I want to thank you and all the many people. So many people have taken part in these marches and protests. They are not represented here. We can barely get the handful that we want to talk to here on, but we want to thank them all because so many people were involved. I'm going to just remove you, Amanda, for sound reasons. Just to get Rachel, one last word. What would you like to say in closing, Rachel?
Thank you, Jane. I would like to say thank you to everyone that came before us. Let's not forget SAKS was protested 20 years ago, like when you said you cut up your card as well. It goes back years. And also, there were people before us. I want to thank Robert Banks also, who left me in charge of SAKS to take on the demos here at headquarters. And for everybody, every single person that came out in freezing weather, again, blizzards, we were out there at SAKS, outside, inside. All those activists need to be thanked and understand that without them, there are no demos, there are no disruptions, there isn't a pressure campaign, you know? So every single one of these activists that came out during COVID, no less, you know, really a big thank you to everyone. My heart is I'm overjoyed and overwhelmed, but it wouldn't have been done without them. I'm very happy and thankful to everyone and to one of my mentors and inspirers who inspires me every day, Jenny McQueen, Adita, yourself, everyone in LA. Thank you to everyone. Mary from Chicago, Leonardi, amazing. Everybody did a great job. Boston,
yes, Rio, yes.
Philadelphia, Revolution Philadelphia. These young girls took on this. Everybody was so amazing. We would talk to each other left and right, like, when are you going? When are you going? We all collaborated and really worked well. It was a pleasure.
Wow. Yes.
And I'm very thankful.
When we heard about this and said, let's go live, everybody was like, well, you really should get so-and-so. They're the ones who really did. And I'm like, you know what, guys, we only have a couple of minutes. Let's pick somebody because everybody in this movement is so generous.
Yeah,
like
Nina,
you should be on. And I said, okay, look, done beats perfect. Let's get some people on. But you guys are heroes. You have all been on the front lines. What we're saying is others have been on the front lines too. And I just want to say something else as being somebody who I am on here doing media, but I'm not the kind of person who would ever, I don't think, I'm too like hyper and crazy to do some of these other things that require a lot of guts.
Fur trade!
Well, you were with us when we did.
SAKS Fifth Avenue has blood on their hands!
Those innocent animals, all these babies.
So that going into the fur salon and doing that, I have to say it takes a lot of guts. I'm not that person. Even though I'm a loudmouth, I'm always scared. And I know Dina, you're cocking your head a little bit like, really? But yeah,
tell her about the banner drop.
Oh yeah, that was quite a story. I had to kind of get in there with someone else. We had to sort of smuggle in a huge banner into SAKS. This was over the winter, and we didn't know if we'd be able to pull it off. And then we had a group of other activists coming in and then did the banner drop. So it was all this sort of mission impossible stuff. Like, are we going to be able to pull this off? And, Rachel, I have to, there were so many people involved, but really Rachel, she has to get an extra thanks because she really went above and beyond in so many ways. A lot of blood, sweat, and tears and anxiety and fear went into organizing these things where, you never know when you're doing a disruption. You can get arrested, even if you're doing nonviolent resistance.
Look at Jenny. She's going
to exactly.
But again, all of this, it's very important to emphasize, is nobody's pushed, nobody's touched.
No, never.
People are simply saying, don't. And after years of writing letters, sending videotapes, having meetings and explaining why this is cruel, why it's bad for the planet, why it's horrible for the animals, why it's completely unnecessary, and why there's alternatives. I don't even think the word fake is a good word to use. New fur, just like now, Impossible Foods is referring to its plant-based meat as new meat.
Right.
So, guys, we've just hit the hour mark. Does anybody have anything else to say?
Congratulations to everyone.
Congratulations, everyone.
Congratulations.
And
this is a day in history.
I would just say, if anyone's considering, becoming an activist, if you're not, join us. There's so many causes. We need you with us. You can help in so many different ways. You don't have to do disruptions. You can do other things. So we need all the activists we can get. So join the movement.
Well, congratulations. Yeah, go ahead, Cesar.
And let's push with the legislation, also with the fur bans. It's very important to work together. One hand grabs the other.
Yeah. And Cesar?
Activism is like you need all the avenues to make the fist and the peace symbol. Everybody together, and I get chills watching these videos. It brings a tear to my eye, and I want to celebrate. Let's celebrate, but we're going to keep pushing, and we're going to keep together. Everybody, like you said before, now, and setting it up for the future. So we definitely want to keep the momentum going. And shout out to all of you. You just all are amazing. You inspire me, and just the energy. Let's keep it moving.
And Amanda, we'll give you the last word there.
Yeah, just continued encouragement to get involved. CAFUSA.org is our website if you want to get involved with us. We also encourage people to find what people are doing locally, but we're happy to connect people, and let's just keep building the momentum forward and see what else we can do.
All right, we're going to end with
thank you, Amanda. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Again, CAF is saying bye-bye to fur.
We did it! We did it!
It always seems impossible until it's done. Nelson Mandela.
Silence for all the animals who've been killed for food. We've got honks of support in a lot of media here. And please know that West Hollywood and Los Angeles and other cities are going fur-free, have gone fur-free. It's being phased in Los Angeles. They just voted to ban the sale of fur. It's going to be phased in over several years. This movement is exploding. Michael Kors was one of the biggest fur purveyors, had resisted change for years, and just recently went fur-free, which is
Thanks again,